the end of an era at Intel. The struggling chipmaker searching for a new CEO, as CEO Paul Otellini says he's going to retire in May.
And our tech correspondent John Fort joins us now. John, how big of a surprise move was this from Intel?
Kind of a surprise. I mean, we expected Otellini to retire eventually, but he was still a couple years away from mandatory retirement age. And look, I mean, Otellini's been a steady hand for Intel, spearheading the Centrino effort that popularized Wi-Fi and laptops, crushing AMD, its main competitor, at the same time engineering settlements that took the legal heat off from both the feds and competitors like AMD and NVIDIA. But just as key during Otellini's 8-year tenure as CEO, Intel's wrong bets on mobile. I mean, the company used to license the same ARM architecture that Apple, Qualcomm, and others used to design their chips, but a year into Otellini's tenure in 2006, Intel sold that business to Marvell. Intel's rationale was always that it believed its own x86 architecture would be better than the ARM architecture, but while that could still be true in the long term, if Otellini had kept the X-Scale business and developed both that and x86, Qualcomm might not be as dominant in mobile as it is now. Somehow, Intel's next CEO is going to have to turn that story around. It's going to require really disciplined management, but also a much clearer and more accurate vision for the arsenal Intel's going to need to reclaim the future of computing, guys.
Okay, lots of things to consider there. Anyway, is this a sign that you should stay away from investing in Intel? Well, let's bring in Edward Snyder, co-founder of Charter Equity Research. Ed, is this very un-Intel, and does it suggest there might be something fishy going on?
Yeah, it is very un-Intel. Usually it's a very smooth transition. You know about it well ahead of time. This kind of announcement you would normally make at an analyst day or you talk about on the quarter, like in the next year or so we're looking at a transition. To have it come out of the blue like this and for him to be departing by May is exceedingly unusual. And if it's not also coupled with some debacle, and it doesn't appear that Intel is suffering anywhere, I'd almost bet this is a personal reason type thing. It's quite uncharacteristic of Intel.
Yeah, personal reason maybe. Wouldn't that be more immediate than May?
Well, it depends. I mean, I don't want to, I hate to think of the health reasons, but you don't know what the background is. Intel's in no way in trouble. They've as John pointed out, totally trounced their competitors, sitting on a pile of cash. They're generating in a huge amount every quarter. You know, they're slow to start in mobile, sure, but they are Qualcomm's biggest threat, and Qualcomm knows that too. It's going to be a couple of years out, but they'll eventually get there. So there's no real catalyst here for a change out as CEO that is evident from the street side of it. So I'm guessing it's probably something internal.
And I'm going to throw out like a wild card here, and it was something that was excellently brought up by one of our producers, Kevin Flynn. He was saying that essentially Jobs said that he was not going to use Intel chips. They were slow, the graphics sucked, etc. And Otellini pushed really hard to get Intel chips inside iPads and other iProducts. Was that a black eye? Was this something that maybe people on the board said, you know what, he doesn't have vision or something?
No, it's not, because Apple is coming at this from a completely different world. As John pointed out, it's a mobile product, very, very different animal than what Intel's normally used to producing. And Intel's recognized that, and they're coming at it from pretty far back in the pack. So it's going to take several years for them to develop a product that's competitive with Qualcomm, but they're on that path. They bought Infineon, a well-established, well-regarded group of guys doing mobile, and they've pretty much left them alone to do what they got to do, and they have an ARM license. So it isn't like Intel. In the old days, Intel would make this acquisition and just keep doing Intel.
Bottom line, Ed, do we buy Intel stocks down 17% year to date?
No, but that's an economic issue. I mean, the economy's slowing down and PCs are taking on the chin, so I wouldn't be buying it here.